Welcome to the Sellernomics podcast, where we share valuable tips and information in the Amazon and e-commerce space. Each week, we deliver the best interviews with some of the top Amazon personalities in the industry to help you grow your business. Today's episode is brought to you by Getida, the global leader in FBA auditing and reimbursements. Get $400 in free FBA reimbursements at Getida.com/Sellernomics. And now, here is your host, Lisa Kinski.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to today's episode of Sellernomics. My name is Lisa Kinski. I'm your solo host for today, but I am joined by a dear, sweet friend of mine, Chris Ortiz with Payability, and we are going to be talking about alternatives to traditional lending, as well as just having a fun little chat about e-commerce in general. So let's bring him on board. Chris, how are you?
Doing good. Thanks for having me on, Lisa. Really appreciate it. Good to catch up as well.
Yes, so good to see you. We used to see each other all the time at events. It's been a while, I feel like. But I have I think it's called recency bias, where whatever's happened in recent history is just all time recorded in the mind. So I've been home for 2 weeks and I'm already itchy. I'm like, where's the next show? Let me get on the road.
Yeah, you're always on the road. Yeah, so
I think Getida away.
Yeah.
Awesome. So Chris, we're going to talk about payability at the end of the episode. But let's just go on ahead and start off with, a lot of times people do funding for the purposes of purchasing more inventory. Would you agree that that's kind of the most common use case for your clients?
Yeah, I would say that, whenever you're looking for money, it's probably because you're looking to, grow the business and to scale, at that specific point in time. So, people do it maybe in cycles. So it's not like you're always looking to grow and scale the business. Sometimes, you're kind of just coasting. Nowadays with the economy, how it is, there's a lot of people that are just looking to stay afloat, really, so they're maybe looking for a lifeline through funding. So I would say it's a mix of both. But usually when you're looking for money, it's because you're looking, to keep the business going, essentially.
Yeah, either for growth or, like you said, a lifeline. Do you have any, from y'all's perspective or partners that you've worked with before, any best practices for managing that inventory?
Yeah, I would say that there's a couple of different tools out there. We're in that ecosystem where, there's certain aggregators that they're just for those reasons, in terms of inventory management, it's like a third-party tool that you can use just to be more efficient in the way that you're, replenishing your inventory. Off the top of my head, I can't really think of many, but I know that that there's a couple out there that they specifically do that. And, in terms of just inventory itself, it's always important to keep it, up to date, especially with a lot of the placement fees that FBA is coming out with, and just things of that nature. You always want to make sure that you have a good enough stock in place, especially, to avoid things like stockouts and things like that as well.
Yeah, that can make the landscape even more difficult for sellers than it already is.
Yep.
What about trends that you're seeing right now? So it was recently announced that Amazon is suspending or ending their lending program. How has that had an impact on your business, if any at all? And what other trends are you seeing?
Yeah, of course. So there's a bunch of things that are happening right now, right? So one would be just the economy, on the macro level, in terms of just interest rates are rising, and that leads to more defaulting on lending, and that's one of the reasons why Amazon shut off their own liability, I guess, in terms of they didn't want to take on that risk anymore because a lot of people were defaulting on their Amazon lending program. So they just pushed that risk off to companies like Goldman Sachs or Marcus or Paraffin, companies that are willing to take on that risk, because defaulting is at pretty high levels just because the economy is in a rough spot currently. Aside from that, you also see a lot of credit card defaults and things like that as well nowadays. So it seems like people are running out of places to get funds from. Some people are even tapping into their 401ks and whatnot. So I think that all of this is a big sign of where the economy currently is. But aside from that, you also do see that companies are Amazon sellers or Walmart sellers, they're a little bit stagnant right now, just because there's not that much, money to spend in terms of just luxuries, or, if I want to like treat myself to like a nice Amazon item, like, maybe I want to think about it twice nowadays, because, where everything is right now with the economy.
That's a fair point. I recently ran a trivia though, and I pulled a statistic. I think it was from the Jungle Scout Amazon seller
Hmm.
report that there are like, I don't know how many millions of purchases made every
Every
second
single day. Yep.
on Amazon. I mean, the statistic was staggering. I'll have to like pull it up and put it in post, but
Hmm.
that's so wild. But I guess times are a little bit more difficult than they were before, because we saw such an increase in online spending because of the pandemic. Everybody
Hmm.
had their little stimmy checks, and so they were able to
Yeah,
do a little
yeah.
more. And now we're getting back to like normal,
I
right?
think, yeah, back to normal. And what I would say personally, one of the opinions I have right now is that, yes, like the people on the top are spending more. Like there is more, like, like if you're lucky enough to be in that top, I guess 50% of people, I guess, you're doing really well for yourself. But then the gap is also growing as well, right? So the people that are like on the lower half, they're having a bit of a tougher time now to even, pay their bills or their groceries and whatnot. A lot of people have like 2 or 3 jobs. So I think that the disparity is just really growing now. So it's just interesting, because it seems like sometimes, like you said, depending on what report you're looking at or like what article you're reading, it looks like things are good, and maybe you read the next one and it's like, wow, things are really bad. So I think it's a bit of like where you're looking at as well, and that
Yeah.
can kind of shift, your perspective on things.
That's totally fair. And so what about tools that you see folks most commonly use to kind of monitor the success of their business, right? So what tools and software do you find are essential? Because the name of the game, there's kind of two names of the game right now. I think for a long
Hmm.
time, especially when I first started at Getida, which was 2 years ago, the name of the game was building a brand. It was like, you
Hmm.
cannot just be some random product on the shelf anymore. It's not 2015. You have to build a brand. Now it's you have to build a brand and really try to increase those profit margins as much as possible. So
Yeah.
I'm curious, from your perspective, what tools are you finding that your sellers are using and that they find to be essential?
Yeah, so I see you just had the past guest that was just on. I'm blanking on his name right now, but I saw a bit of that episode as well, and he was talking just about really having those tools in place where you do want to check, and kind of be like really in the weeds with your math and what's going on with your business. You want to check maybe once a month at the minimum, just to make sure that everything is lining up, and that like you said, right now with everything being a bit more tighter in the economy, even 1 or 2% profit margin that you get extra from doing, certain things, that can make all the difference for you. So my really advice to most of the sellers I work with is, to try not to take on any debt that you might not need right now. You don't want to pay these high interest rates. So, if it's possible to avoid that, or, try to get funding elsewhere, I would always recommend that. Also, you want to use, services like QuickBooks and, different services as well that, pretty generic, right? But it just helps you kind of get like an overview of where the business is and maybe some of the places where you could tighten up. Always, when the economy is like it is right now, like personally and like as a company, or maybe Getida as well, or, Amazon sellers themselves, what I would say is try to look for ways that you can just cut costs. So, maybe some of the things that you might not need, or maybe some of the things that, maybe you haven't used it in 6 months, maybe try to reconsider some of those things, so that way you do have a little bit more, wiggle room, or maybe some more profit, just because you took a look again at your finances. And it's something as simple as that, just
Mhm.
kind of, trying to see where you can cut some cost.
Yeah, I think the episode you're referring to, I had to check back myself. Hosting 2 shows gets confusing. But the most recent episode of Sellernomics was the Tyler Jeffcoat. He runs a Seller
Yeah.
Accountant, and I think he did touch on that of, trying to eliminate as much cost as you can so that you don't have to compromise the quality of your product, and you don't have to necessarily eat into your
Into your profits.
margins.
Yep.
Right, exactly. And I think what's so interesting and enticing to people about e-commerce is that they don't have, generally speaking, some people do, but they don't have the overhead cost of like an office and the utilities for the office,
Yep.
delete and all of that stuff. But then there's like death by service provider too, right? Like you have 8 different keyword listing tools. You like are
Yep.
using so many different. I mean, the number of subscriptions. I wonder if there's like a rocket money for Amazon sellers to like find the expenses.
Yeah, and there's certain bookkeepers that they are specifically for e-commerce businesses, but at the end of the day, it's like you said, there's so many tools and aggregators and whatnot, and maybe you want to try out a couple of them and see like what works best. But in that process, you are losing money essentially. Like it has to be valuable to you and your business, and maybe just because like I use one tool doesn't mean that it will work for all businesses.
Right.
So it's like everybody has their own learning curve in a way, and at the end of the day, like if something is worth it and something is helping your business, then, by all means, right? But at the end of the day, it's a lot of trial and error where, maybe you might be burning some money along the way.
What about scaling? So we had mentioned before, a lot of folks are taking, some of this alternative funding options for inventory because they really want to take the business to the next level. But in a world where there's less frivolous spending, that's hard to do, right? Because you are dependent on the consumer. So what is your advice to your clients for scaling the business?
Yeah, definitely. It comes down to timing always. You want to do it at the right time, and, you don't want to push the business too far, like, to the point where it might break. Like if you do things too quickly, you want to make sure that you have a good grasp on who your target audience is. You want to also have a good grasp on what are your most profitable products, what works and what doesn't work. Me, typically, when somebody comes to me and they're like a new seller, I just give them the advice to try out different products, whichever ones work the best for you, try to stick with those. And I think that works across all levels of being a seller, right? Maybe if you want to launch a new product or whatnot, it's important to see first, like what the customer feedback would be. And, in terms of scaling, you really want to, do it at the right time, but also have the right plan in mind, right? Like, where am I going to get my funding from? If I use this much money on advertisement, like I know I'm going to get a boom in demand, will I be able to keep up with it with supply? It's just really just having it all planned out, because when you do decide to push that button, it's like, at that point it's too late to go back, right? Like now you have all this money, you have all this advertisement spend, and now you don't have enough supply for some reason, like you don't want to be in that situation. So you just want to make sure that you have it all thought out, and that, maybe you have 2 or 3 different alternatives for like, what if it goes really well? What if it doesn't go well? Like, what if it goes like, less than I expected? You want to think in that way, because you just don't want to be reactive. You want to be proactive when you're scaling the business, I would say.
Absolutely. Absolutely. How do you know when it's the right time, Chris? Are you hiding a magic crystal ball in your apartment? How do you know?
Well, if you got into business, I think you have a really good instinct, and you have a really good, gut instinct as well. So I think that you'll know instinctually. But at the end of the day, it's like, if you feel like you've been coasting for a while, I guess, and like the business is kind of manageable at that point, and like you're ready to take that next leap, just with anything in life, really, right? Like if things have been going well for the last 2 or 3 years, maybe I'm ready to move to the next level. And I think that, the same thing applies to business. If you feel comfortable where you're at and you want to, try to push it to the next level, then, have a game plan in mind, of course, and, see where the funds are going to come from, see where the products are going to come from, and, see how you can go about doing different forms of marketing, because it's not just all pay for click. You can do like some organic stuff as well. You can do some content as well. There's different ways to bring people in the door. So you want to make sure that you have a good mixture of all of these different ways.
For sure. We are going to take a quick break and hear a message from our sponsor, but we will be back in just a minute.
Be the next Amazon success story with Getida's FBA refund recovery service. We're offering Sellernomics listeners $400 in free FBA reimbursements to get started. Let us help you maximize your Amazon profits. With Getida, your Amazon business is in good hands.
All
And
right,
we're back.
and we're back. Y'all know the drill. Go to Getida.com/Sellernomics for the first 400 in FBA reimbursements free. And we are back with Chris Ortiz. So we've been talking about like kind of scaling the business, and it's a little bit of a difficult economic situation right now. But I feel like there's a lot of opportunity with additional marketplaces, domestic and abroad. What are you seeing with the Payability clients, and what's some of the advice that y'all are giving to sellers who are like, okay, I'm doing pretty solid on Amazon. I maybe want to try this new thing called Walmart, or I don't feel like Etsy is a big fit for a lot of people, but like maybe they want to expand internationally or even just to Canada. Like what are y'all telling folks?
Yeah, for sure. I always advise people, not to put all their eggs in one basket. Because let's say one day, like Amazon is like doesn't like you that day, and then they suspend your account, which we do see circumstances like that, where maybe a seller was doing really well, or maybe something triggered Amazon security systems, and now like they lose like their livelihood because of it. So you want to make sure that you're expanding both, like you said, to Walmart. Walmart is making a really big push recently to just take some of Amazon's market share, I guess. They want to have like their own sellers on Walmart. So I always recommend, to try to diversify in that way, just having Amazon, and, having some on Walmart as well. That's really simple. But then you can also do, like you said, across borders, like have Canada. I have a lot of sellers that are starting to go into South America, like Mexico. I hear El Salvador is going to be like one of those countries, coming up in the future. There's different ways to go about it. Definitely, you don't want to limit yourself to just one marketplace or one country, especially nowadays, how the world is. Everything is the click of a button, basically. So you want to make sure that that you're doing all of these things to help you take those hits, right? Because again, like we were just discussing, if you do take one of those hits on your business, like you want to have multiple avenues to where you're still going to be able to put food on that plate,
right?
Which is what I would say.
Right. And Amazon's definitely still got the largest market share, right? There's no two ways around it. Yep. But, a little bit of a natty plug for our mutual partner, eCommerce Chris McCabe. He does help with those listing and account suspensions if ever Amazon does decide that maybe you're not their favorite seller that day. And it's not even, half the time it's just a bot that read something and it said, this is not what we want right now. So
exactly. Yeah. And then I would say TikTok shop too. Like a lot of people are doing a lot more live shopping, I guess. Like, when you're scrolling on TikTok and you have like those people just selling things. Amazon is looking into that as well. Just a lot of more people are more receptive to just buying things live. Like if somebody's just demoing how the product works. So, that's always another thing that you can do as well. Another idea.
I think that's a really powerful, maybe not TikTok shop specifically, but UGC and influencers are a really powerful tool in selling a product, because my question is always like size and quality, right? Like you can only tell so much from pictures. So you either need videography, or I need to see somebody engaging with something to know, okay, how big is it actually? I don't want to like pick on any one particular marketplace, but I'm seeing some pictures of stuff come off of Temu, and they're like, oh, I ordered a couch that was cheap, and it's like a Barbie dollhouse couch, right?
Yeah.
And it just feels like such a vital piece of an Amazon seller's equation now, to have that UGC, to have that influencer, and that can help mitigate a lot of returns. And in the same kind of vein as returns would be customer experience and customer feedback, right? Because if folks are returning your product, obviously something they don't care for about it, or there's something wrong in the production, and reviews are a really great place to learn more about how you can optimize your product or your listing, or make it more profitable, really. So what is your advice, or again, how are you seeing sellers using customer feedback for improvement right now?
Yeah, so right now it seems like we're in a space where people are giving their customers like the total experience is what they're calling it, where, you want to be touching base with them like all the time, or you want to make sure that everything from the initial like acquiring that customer or acquiring that lead, everything is seamless and you're just, always there for them. So you want to hold their hand pretty much throughout the whole purchasing process. So some people are starting to use AI for customer experience, just to make it a bit smoother. Also with what you said about just the product and seeing like the quality of it and the size of it as well. A lot of people, what they're doing is that they're integrating AI in some ways that you can maybe try on the product. Like I saw something really interesting, like while I was studying for this, it was like, people were like trying on the sunglasses. Like you could just click the product, you can just try on the sunglasses on your face. Maybe you can like dress something up or like try on like a shirt or something like that. So I think that it's really interesting. Just at the end of the day, like it's always to increase consumer confidence, right? And to make them feel more at ease that they're buying from you. So it all ties in together, just, being there when they have a question. A lot of the times we're buying things online now. Like you said, like, I bought a couch online. I just bought a bike online. And it's like, I never really tried these things, but it's like, based off the reviews and just based off the experience that I'm seeing online, like I feel confident enough to buy it, and, the name of the company as well. So, for Amazon sellers, I would say integrating some of these AI customer service bots, whatever it may be, so that way, you continue to build that, that confidence and also that trust, and, you'll have a returning client,
Yeah. That brings up an interesting question that I'm thinking of on the fly here, right? We didn't prep for this one, but AI seems to be touching kind of every corner of the Amazon business. There's, product generation, product photography generation tools, right? Like eContent.ai. There's Midjourney that does the videos and such. And I love the scan your room and we'll show you how the couch
how it looks there. Yep.
There's everything, right? There's AI repricers. How is AI fitting into the world of funding, or is it even?
Yeah, so right now I think it's just touching the tip of the AI with funding. One of the uses I've seen is just like the AI assistant would be able to tell you like when it's time to replenish, like your funds, or like when you might want to take some more. Like they take a look at your business. A lot of businesses now, they're just trying to integrate with just your cash flow and just, what your banking statements might look like. Maybe they want to suggest like, okay, maybe now it's a good time for you to take maybe $10,000 or $15,000, from the line. So it's more in that way to trying to see like when the business can use that cash injection. Besides that, I really haven't seen much. I think for us, like, it's useful in terms of like underwriting. Like maybe you want to underwrite a bunch of people with like an AI type of tool, just so that you can automate that process of underwriting and just, see what the risk is with lending to somebody. So I think that that's also another useful case for it. But yeah, pretty much just those two are the ones that come top of mind right away.
Yeah. There hasn't been a conversation we've had on this show in the last 8 to 12 months, even where AI hasn't come up in some shape, form, or fashion. Well, Chris, I think that we've kind of talked a lot about most of our talking points today, except for the final piece, which would really be pricing of products. And, again, this all ties back into funding, because your funding is what's going to lead the growth of your business, right? Unless you have like a super viral, well, you need the funding to a super viral TikTok video.
You gotta keep up with it.
Yeah, it's like chicken and egg. But what about like pricing, products?
Yeah, I would say that you want to be competitive, but still to the point where you're still running off with some sort of profit. In the video again that I was just watching that you guys just did, he mentioned that you don't want it to be more than 50% of like, the advertisement costs and also your costs to sell the product as well. So you want to make sure that your margins are, healthy still. If you want to be a little bit more competitive, of course, you want to price it, accordingly. But at the end of the day, like you don't want to price yourself out or, put your business in a bad position. So it really depends, like how aggressive you want to be and, what would the return look like on that? And again, I'm a big supporter of just like this scenario, and this scenario, and like, just trying to see like which one is the best and maybe try all of them.
Yeah, kind of A/B test things. And
A/B
then
testing,
use tools like IntelliV or PickFu, because you're able to put those use cases and examples. I forget what they call them. I'll call it survey for lack of a better term. That's not what they use, but to say, hey, would you buy this product at $16.99 or $12.99? Sometimes the lowest price is not always going to be the best option, because that's a it's the perceived value of the item. And if you're beneath that, then it's like, okay, well, this is probably cheap, or vice versa. If somebody's like, this is a potato masher, it does not need to be $47. Like,
Exactly, yeah.
things like that.
But then, yeah, it depends on the categories too. You know, sometimes like you do splurge, or you want to just buy it once and you want to make sure it's really good quality. So, you know, it really depends.
Fair. Oh, I could go down a rabbit hole on that. Do you know what pillows cost? A purple pillow, a purple brand pillow is $200, and that's the cheapest one. That's wild to me. I am not their customer base. I bought a dupe off Amazon. Chris, let's talk about Payability specifically now. So you guys have been incredible partners of Getida. We co-host, along with our aforementioned partner, Chris McCabe, the Amazon New York Sellers Forum events in the tri-state area. So tell us more about Payability, how you guys are helping sellers, who you help, and just kind of your involvement in the community.
For sure, yeah. So yeah, thanks for that, Lisa. I also wanted to thank Getida as well. You guys have always been really good partners to us as well. Every time I see you or Rob or Yoni as well, like you guys are always really welcoming and just really friendly. So, you know, from Payability, it's always, you know, the same sentiments towards you guys. For us right now at Payability, what we've done since October is that we moved over to a fee structure that is more customer friendly, I would say, where you know, you only pay us a fee only when you actually transfer it to the bank. So it's a lot easier to understand in some ways, because in the past we used to charge just a simple fee on the total gross sales for that pay period, you know, which would sometimes become issue, you know, for some of our clients, just because, you know, they would get charged that fee regardless if they were using the funds or not. So now with free access, it's really just pay as you go, or, you know, if you don't use the funds, you don't pay us any fees. So it's really helpful, especially in the environment right now that we're in, where, you know, you don't want to be paying fees for no reason, and you don't want to like incur costs for no reason. So, you know, a lot of people really like it the way that we presented it now. And aside from that, we also do offer the Visa card as well, where you can just spend the money completely for free through the Visa card. So, you know, that's also really helpful as well. It allows you to grow and scale the business, you know, without having to pay any sort of debt or, you know, interest rates or anything like that. So it's pretty useful.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that you've kind of moved over to a model similar to ours, really, like only pay for it when you use it sort of thing.
Yeah.
Because then it's a more like a more predictable line item, I guess. Like I know that if I pull this money, this is what I'm gonna get charged. Here's when I can do it because I have this big order for this time, and it makes things a little more
manageable.
Like
Yeah, manageable
before.
and predictable. Yeah, exactly. And at the end of the day, you know, for us, like you said, like our customer that we look towards, you know, to helping is somebody that is just looking to grow and scale their business, but also somebody that's looking to stay in business for a while, right? Because at the end of the day, like that's what we're here for, right? It's just to help you stay in business and to help you stay afloat, to help you pay your bills. And I'm sure, you know, with Getida, you guys are there, you know, to help somebody, you know, also find some money that they lost as well. So, you know, it's really just about helping the customer. And I think as long as we continue to do what we do and, you know, just have good intentions behind it, like, you know, things will always, you know, you can kind of tell who you're doing business with. So, you know, I always just try to be like the best helpful person I can be to the customers we work with.
Yeah. And you'd mentioned before, those growth-minded sellers are best to work with Payability. Is there a particular sales history threshold, like have to have been selling for 2 years or have at least 100 ASINs or make $1 million or more a year? Are there any minimums that they should be aware of?
Yeah. So for us, we don't check credit and we don't check any financial documents or anything like that. So because of that, we do require at least 3 months of sales history, just so that we have enough, you know, sales data to look at. And then from there, we look at around 5,000 per month in sales, just because we've seen that that's, you know, a pretty good indication of a consistent seller, I would say. You know, we don't really want somebody that's going to like come on board and then, you know, they're just doing Amazon for a bit. Like we want to make sure that we're maintaining a long, healthy relationship, you know, with our sellers.
That's awesome. And then this is going to be coming out mid-June. So what shows are you guys coming up to in the near future? There's not a lot in the next couple of weeks, but I think the next is ASGTG. Will you guys be there?
Yeah, we might. And I think we're looking at Amazon United. I think that's going to be in Jersey. So Let's see if you come up to Jersey for that one. And then, I think that there's going to be Amazon Accelerate as well. We'll probably go back to Seattle this year. I think we want to try out Shop Talk as well. We still haven't tried it out, but I see that like you guys had a really good time back in Vegas when you guys went. So I think we might give that a try. And then aside from that, we're also trying this new thing where we're just hosting, like events for a small concentration of sellers. So we're also just trying to, just give back to the community in that way, just creating a space where you can meet other sellers and, maybe talk about some of the challenges and also some of the successes that you've had just in an environment, where you're pretty much with your coworkers. Because I think for Amazon sellers, like they don't really have that space where they can just talk to their coworkers essentially. So, it's good to at least even create that type of space or, with the events that we do with Getida and with eCommerce Chris. That's pretty much the goal of it as well, is just to have people in that same room with, like-minded individuals.
Yeah, it's shared experiences and learning from each other's successes as much as failures. And I've said it 1,000 times on the show if I've said it once, but that's the beautiful thing about this community is everybody coming together and really all with the same mentality of rising tides lift all boats. And so if you guys are listening and you are in the tri-state area, New York, New Jersey, what's the third state, Chris? I never know.
I think it's Connecticut, but I don't go there too often.
Okay. Well, if you're in the tri-state area and you guys are either interested in coming to the AMZ NYC Seller Forum that we co-host with Payability or some of the smaller events, y'all can reach out to Chris directly at chriso@payability.com. And then if you're interested in getting that initial, is there like an application for a funding assessment that they can do at payability.com or what's the step?
You guys can just head over to payability.com. Our application process is really, really simple. We just require, some simple personal and business information along with an invite to your Amazon store so that we can review the business. Usually it's a same day decision, and then you can decide, if you would like to try this out. So it's pretty easy.
Awesome. Same day turnaround time. That is great. And then just really quickly, you guys are helping US based sellers or sellers with US stores or both?
Yes, we can help international sellers as well. It just has to be selling on the Amazon.com marketplace. So we can only work with the US marketplace, essentially.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for clarifying. Chris, thank you so much for coming on with me today. Super, super appreciate your time.
Of course. Thank you, Lisa, as well.
And thanks to everyone who tuned in today. If you liked what you heard, please be sure to give us a thumbs up, share your thoughts with us in the comments, subscribe to the show, and we will see you all on the next one.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Sellernomics podcast. Special thanks to our sponsor, Getida. Did you know that Amazon probably owes you money for FBA reimbursements? Get $400 in free FBA reimbursements at Getida.com/Sellernomics. Be sure to join us again next week for more great tips on how to grow your business. And thanks again for listening.